Hey, what's up, guys? Episode 292 of Richard Metal Fan Interviews, calling from Zoom, and I'm here with Francesco Paoli from the legendary Fleshgod Apocalypse. How are you doing today, man? It's great to have you on my show.
Yeah, it's my pleasure, and hi to everybody listening to your show. It's great. Thank you for waking up this early.
Hey, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So, kind of what I want to talk about is, of course, I want to talk about the new album, Opera, but I also want to do like a speed run of your discography. So, take you back to young Francesco. So, growing up in Italy, what were like the first bands that got you into metal, and what made you want to be a musician?
Well, like the first bands that I've listened to was more like it was random. I was like at the middle school, and a friend of mine just came back came to school with a cassette. You know, we were pretty old. We're pretty old, and he had this tape, and on this tape, we it was like totally like was a mixed thing that I remember clearly. There was Fear Factory, the manufacturer, and there was Blind Guardian, and there was Demo, and there was some other, like I remember Halloween and stuff like that. So this kind of metal, like in a way, yeah, impressed me from the very first moment. And if I think about my influences at the moment, after all these years, like 25 years later, they are still the same. So I think that that kind of, let's call it like metal imprinting that I got with those tapes, is still perceivable in my music. And Fleshgod is the best representation of these influences, the mix and the balance of all these styles and influences. So this kind of bands influence me for the metal and the musical aspect of it. But when you say being a musician, I think I have to think about other bands later on that were impressing me a lot, like Slipknot or Rammstein or this kind of stuff that, in a way, um, in a way, impressed me so much that made me think. I want to entertain people as they do. I want to make this kind of step in which it's not just playing the music, but it's also a full show, a full entertainment every time we do something.
Yeah.
Can be a show, but it can also be a video clip, or it can also be pictures. So yeah, this I would say this big X really, behemoth. If we want to mention another European band or
Yeah.
Demo, this kind of bands. Yeah.
Great bands. So
Yeah.
apparently I was also doing my research. I believe like one of your first bands was Tyrannical Ethical Reconstruction.
Wow, you're
Like,
digging. You're digging very, very
yeah, like
in my
nobody ever
depth.
talks about this stuff.
That is basically that stuff is that project was a very, very it was like the first serious metal band we all had. Paolo was in that too, and there was this few bands like in the center of Italy, and we were shaping up like some kind of death metal scene. It was very brutal, but still very melodic. And that was like the band that, from the ashes of that band, we kind of made Fleshgod Apocalypse. So as I said, I was playing in that band with Paolo already. So I've been playing. Me and Paolo played together for almost 20 years, man. So I've been with
Nice.
Paolo more than with my wife. And yes, and that is the very, very seminal, like the origin of everything. And there were many bands like us, Our Penance, that I joined later on,
Yeah.
and many other bands, even like more progressive or power metal
Yeah.
bands.
Which, speaking of
And
our
we
penance,
all contributed. Yeah. Yeah, with
Speaking of
like
Our Penance, you did this album in '08. I love this album. Like nobody ever talks about this. It's just fucking brutal.
yeah. Well, we were young and we were, really, really, I don't know, wild. So we now it's more about we're still wild in a way, but it's a controlled wildness. So let's say it's more what we are aiming for, what we are looking for in the music is a different thing. It's like create different emotions, create different atmospheres and dynamics. And yeah, I grew up, and my tastes, in a way, I don't say they changed, but I definitely extended the spectrum of my tastes with age. So now what I'm looking for, like we write the music, or when we like write the concept, we always try to um we look for different aspects of it, not just be super impactful or super fast or whatever, as we super heavy as we were when we were young. So it's different, a different maturity and different approach of it.
Yeah. And then I know also in 2009, I also want to talk about like your little stint with the band Blood Truth. You played drums for them for a little bit. Like I'm always curious about them.
Bloodshot, yeah, Bloodshot like one of my best friends is the guitar player, and now he's playing bass in another brutal band called Vomit the Soul, and
Love
it's
them.
super brutal. And yeah, we always had this we always had, sorry, okay, somebody's calling me. I don't know how to.
Yeah.
Yeah. So no, we always had in mind to have this this super brutal band together and have fun. Our sons are friends as well, so we just wanted to hang out and do stuff. And at first we started with this new band Bloodroot, and then I was too busy with Fleshgod, so they went on with the new lineup, super killer musicians, super nice. Stefano has been there for all the albums and everything, and now he's also playing in another band. So yeah, it's that was super cool as well. Like I think I've been lucky enough to be part of many super nice projects from Italy. So
Yeah. And then that same year and this year does mark 15 years of the first Fleshgod Apocalypse album, Oracles. I love this album. So what was sort of like the thought process making like the debut full-length Fleshgod Apocalypse album?
sorry, man, can you say again?
Yeah, sort of like what was like the whole like recording process like for the first album?
That was once it didn't change much. It's still the same. Like the writing process of that album was a little bit more extended because it was the first material I was writing myself. I mean, like I already wrote songs in the past, even for the other bands I was in. But for this one specifically, I just kept some material on hold for years because I never had the chance, to start the band myself. And when we kind of found it in like at the very beginning as some kind of a lineup, I was like, okay, let's do it. And I collected all this material, and it ended up into Oracles and later on in Mafia. And at first, we didn't have like the full lineup. So Francesco wasn't there yet, Veronica wasn't there yet. So it's a little bit more. It's more technical death metal, but still melodic, and it's already it already shows the direction where we want it to go in a way. And that album is super important to me because it's where everything started. So the recording process was I wrote the whole thing, and then we went into the studio, and I remember Mauro tracked the drums, and I did the guitars and vocals, and Paoli the bass, and created the solos. And we tracked it in a studio called the 60 Cellar Studio. Is the melting pot of the extreme metal in Italy. And yeah, it's great times, great memories,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah, I know we also have the new album coming out, but is there a chance we can get a celebration of this or maybe throw in some like deep cuts?
What deep cuts of this one?
Yeah, yeah, of Oracles, like maybe throw in some songs that you haven't played live in forever.
Uh, you want to play it at your show? You mean?
Yeah, yeah, I was just curious, like if you'll play any on the upcoming tour you're gonna do with Shadow of Intent.
Ah, you mean on tour? Yeah.
Yeah.
For like, you know what? We played those songs for so much time, and now it's a little bit, we just moving to the new stuff, and when we tour, mostly we play new stuff. But yeah, I at the moment we didn't even know. I don't even know whether it's gonna be the playlist, but sometimes it pops in our mind that we might still play a couple of songs like "In Honor of Reason" or like "Requiem" or "Two Oscars." With sometimes from Mafia. It's like. Uh, it depends on the tour, and also it depends on what kind of show we're bringing. So sometimes this stuff matches and fit in the set, sometimes it doesn't, so it's more but I don't know yet. It's a surprise. Let's see. I don't
Yeah.
know. We didn't think about it yet.
Yeah, it's all good. But then moving on to the Mafia EP, I love this one. I especially love how you also did a cover of At the Gates Blinded by Fear. So what made you guys decide to do cover that song in particular?
No, I'm a super big fan of them.
Yeah.
I'm super big fan of them. I'm super big fan of melodic and all Swedish death metal. So I just wanted to pay a tribute to them. It's like, and I think the outcome is great because still people still blasting it. Sometimes it's super fun.
Yeah, because I especially love how there's always like the blast beats like all throughout. It just makes it really more brutal than the original.
Yeah. So you might not, I think you're gonna like the last one, the last album, because we came back to the origin, to this to the blasting, much more than Yeah, yeah, no. I mean, opera is very, very diverse and
Yeah.
very, I would say, it's 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 well balanced in a way, but that we put back a lot of heavy shit that we didn't play for long. So
Yeah.
it's definitely ever than Veleno or King in a way. So
Yeah. And then the same year in 2010, you did your last song with album. Did you wanted to try something different than what you did on the Vile Conception?
yeah, that one is yeah, that album is like man, we were, I don't know, like we were at the top of our shape on that album, I think, for what concerned that lineup of our opponents. Then they moved on with Paolo and other guys, and they're still killing it. The last album is amazing, but yeah, and I think that album, Val Conception, and that album were like one of the best albums that they released in general. Giulio was writing the music, and I think was that time frame for him was like a gifted time frame. Like in those days, whatever he was writing was really nice, really cool.
Yeah.
So I was very lucky to be there in that time of in that time frame of the band career.
Yeah. And then of course going back to Fleshgod, I always like the agony and labyrinth. I almost put them like two together. They're almost kind of like brother and sister in a way. So tell me about like making those albums.
Was super tough. Was super tough because they were like the first two albums that we were doing with the orchestrations. And I think that it's in a way we are super proud of those two albums. But I feel that in both albums, I think mostly in Agony, Agony is super brutal and lacks a little bit of dynamics in general. So I was happy because it's a statement of how heavy and aggressive, but still melodic we can be. But he needed some kind of a refinement, and I think in Labyrinth we found this refinement. The problem of Labyrinth is I think it's we had to rush a little bit at the end with the production because of touring schedule and everything. So I think the album itself is a little bit I would say damaged by, you know, a little bit of lack of attention to the production at the very end. And I think that we really found like a good standard of production with a more relaxed songwriting process, and that started from Kings, from the album that follows. So but those two albums means the world to me, because it's during that time frame, like 2010, 2014, we really shaped up. We shaped up what Fleshgod was, and we just needed a little bit more, I would say, like consciousness and maturity to have the freedom to explore different fields, musical wise, I would say. But in there's we really, you know, we really kind of put the seed of what Fleshgod would have become later. You know, it's exactly when we really figured out what kind of style we wanted to play. So when we felt like, okay, this is what we want to do. And yeah, as I said, it's still a little bit like it lacks a little bit of dynamics, because we were coming from we really we still needed a little bit more time to figure out, you know, what we wanted to, how far we wanted to go with the music. That's the thing. I think, and I think that and it's more like, and King is probably the turning point. Like in King, we really figured out, okay, this is Fleshgod sound, and we just have to, you know, stick to it. And going back to the roots is always good. Exploring is always good, and that's what we've done mostly from King to Opera.
Yeah.
But the soul of the band is still in Agony and Labyrinth, definitely.
I agree. And then, I know you also do session work, because I know you worked with the Embryo in 2015. You did drums. So how different of it is it, like doing session work as opposed to like working with like main bands like Fleshgod?
It was a fun album. Like I did many, and it's always great to get in contact with different musicians, different songwriting approaches, and I learn a lot from others. And it's always it's, as I said, it's always very interesting, and in a way, you know, it's essential for a musician to have this kind of contaminations for your own songwriting style. I mean, without, you know, learning from people around me, I wouldn't be the songwriter I am. And so working with others is sometimes a little bit, you have to stick to their plan, because they are, you know, the main songwriters, and you can kind of, you know, add some flavors here and there. But watching them write is always essential to learn new techniques, new approaches to the music, and that reflects on your own songwriting later on. So it's mandatory in a way to get in touch with different songwriters and different bands, because otherwise you just stick to your own style, and after a while, you know, it becomes boring, because it's you keep doing the same thing over and over, you know.
Yeah.
So
yeah, but then of course, talking a little bit about King, I love this. This has a special place in my heart, because this album cycle was the first time I actually saw you guys. I saw you all. You did that tour with Epic. I saw you all at the Masquerade in Atlanta, and ever since then, I think I've seen almost every show you've done since then. I've seen like you guys 5 times, including twice earlier this year on the 70,000 Tons of Metal cruise. So how do you feel about this album now, considering it's now 8 years old?
bro, this album, as I said, is a milestone for us. It's the album that First thing first, that with that album we kind of became a professional band. Like it's the step that we were like, okay, this is not just like a very, you know, well organized passion. It's becoming like a proper job. And that album, so it's even professionally speaking, it's a true milestone, a turning point. Musical wise, what can I say? As I said, you know, it's the first album where we were like really, you know, we were having the perception that what we were doing was like the sound of a mature band. So we were very proud of it when we listened to it for the first time and like to the master, and we were like, man, we did this. You know, we kind of figured out what's the right balance between things. And because like the biggest struggle for Fleshgod was always trying to find this balance between orchestrations and heavy stuff and melodic stuff and clean vocals, but a lot of elements. And with that album, we kind of found some kind of formula that worked, and from that formula we just developed. So it's yeah, it's probably the most important album we've done. If we're talking about the Fleshgod Apocalypse sound, like as you know, the new sound is intended. You know.
Totally. Yeah, I think that's definitely like you found like where you are that makes what
Yeah.
Flesh God. But then I know going flash forward to 2018, I know you also did your side other side project, Coffin Birth. You did the Serpent Insignia in 2018. Tell me about making that. That and how different of
Yeah.
a mind frame is working with Coffin Birth as opposed with Flesh God.
Well, for Coffin Bird is a band that we made to. It's a band made by friends. Like it's basically we did it because we were all, you know, really into, as I said, Swedish death metal, HM2 death metal, and tuned this kind of stuff. A little bit more grind and stuff like that. So we wanted to do something super raw, super brutal. And Giulio me and Giulio wanted to play again after 8 years. So we played again because the last time we played together was with Hour of Penance in 2010. And I wanted to make a band with Marco, who was producing the new Fleshgod albums. So I was like, let's do it. And so it's like a super fun band, super fun band. And we are working on some new stuff. It's a
Yeah.
totally different approach. Like Fleshgod is more when we do it is it's the main thing. So it's fun, but at the same time you have a lot of responsibilities with it. And you know, Coffin Bird is just a hobby in a way. So it's more about hanging out, you know, and you know, having fun in the
Yeah, just
studio
hanging with the
or and
homies.
exactly, exactly.
Yeah. And then the last album, Veleno. I loved this album. Like, I think it's a great follow-up to King. So how is it making this album?
That album is a little bit more progressive and guitar oriented stuff. Like the guitar work of that album is very like it's insane, and it's the first album we did with Fabio. And I was writing the music. I always been writing the music, but you know, writing the music, you then you need the right guys to play it. And Fabio is a killer guitar player, so we were like we could push on that direction as well. So guitar wise, it's a really super technical album, and I loved it because it's something that we weren't doing since Oracles. Maybe, you know, things went in a way we simplified a little bit on that to make room for the rest. And on that album we came back to that, and there are some songs like Sugar or Mona Lisa where the guitar work is like super tough, like or Pissing on the Score or Embrace the Oblivion. These songs are like insane. And it was fun. Like people say this album is was a challenge also because I was recording more instruments, but actually I always took part of the guitar recording and etc. On that album specifically, the majority, like a lot of guitar parts were done by Fabio. And so in a way, it was even easier. I still did drums on that, and it's the last album I did drums on. And then when we released the new single Snow, and now with Opera, this Eugene playing drums. So for me, it was a little bit more less stressful, let's say.
Yeah. And then of course you toured for a little bit, and then of course that certain virus that I still refuse to name happened. And during that
Yeah.
how hard was it? Because I know like the pandemic kind of like fucked up the whole music industry. So for you
Yeah.
personally, how did you deal with it? Because I know you also did like session work with like Forewarned World and Son of the Suns, and you also did another band, Oddco. Because was that something to help like keep your mind occupied at the time?
Yeah, it was like in that moment, what the only thing we could do is to try to do like mostly recordings. So I took part of many projects while I was trying to stay in touch with our own fan bases. We did many things during the COVID time. We, as I said, we released No, and we did with
Yeah.
our company Midas. Me and Francesco, the piano player, have this company. We did a lot of works for other bands that everybody was in the studio recording. So we mostly collaborated as songwriters or for arrangements. And yes, it was horrible as for everybody. But we tried to stay busy, and we try to still contribute to the industry in the every way possible, because we didn't want to you know uh, quit for too long, and then because it was risky. Those who quit and waited, now they're like struggling much more than us to come back, because this kind of things, it's something that it's never fixed for completely, so you have to gradually restart things. So my main concern was to that staying away from the music business for too long would be like the end of it for us. So I just try to, as I said, stay busy as much as I could as an artist myself, but also with the band. We did the stream, we did the single,
Yeah.
and
Which I love.
as soon as we could, we started writing new material.
Yeah, and I still love how you all kept going. I especially love like the singles you did. You did No, and you also did that cover of your of course your fellow Italians in I Feel 65 with Blue Davide. So what made you guys decide to cover I Feel 65? Because that was one of my favorite songs as a kid.
Yeah, well, we just wanted to have we just wanted to have a little bit of fun, in a time frame which was completely, it was there was like, it was so fucked up that we didn't felt like we didn't felt the urge to write new music. It was, we were some in a way dried up as musicians, and there was a little bit of lack of inspiration, and we were like, you know what, we should write some music that in a way is giving a little bit of a break from all this super serious mess. We try to break this very heavy atmosphere with something was more fun. And we did it, putting Britney Spears in No,
Yeah,
and
I thought that was fucking
even
brilliant.
though No, I No is one, I think, is one of the best songs we have.
Yeah.
And I think that it's super fun that we made it. We could put this weird feature in it. And Blue was the same. We wanted to celebrate this super well-known song, and but doing something that wasn't so serious. So put a smile on some faces, and in a time frame that was super hard. It was very hard for everybody, so we just wanted to give it a little bit of relief, and that's it.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And I always said to like the others, but we could have a song called No. But when are you all gonna have a song called Yes?
That's pretty soon. Well, in the end, sooner or later, we have to do that.
Yeah. But I'm surprised like No isn't even on the new album. But anyway, talking about the new album Opera, which comes out very soon, I'm already loving like the first few singles, like I Can Never Die, Pendulum, and Blood Clock. So how was the whole like writing and recording process like for Opera?
This album is the most important to me because the story is it's my story. I had an accident in 2021, and we wrote this opera, and the opera is basically the story of my recovery process throughout this few months. So few months. It's 3 years. And basically, the songwriting was super complicated because as I said, I got severe injuries, and for a long time had to be bedridden, and I couldn't play at all. So we mostly wrote this like without even having an instrument in my hand. And then we refined it when I was able to restart playing. And we waited a little bit longer because I needed to be back 100% mentally and physically. And we started recording this last year. And the process was super smooth. We did drums with Eugene, and like the rest of the album, yeah, everybody in the album is the same people. Paolo left earlier this year, so we had more room for explore Veronica's skills, vocally speaking. And since the album is written, the songs are written like dialogues, she had much more room to express it and herself, and she did an amazing job. So I'm very proud of this one. And as I said, it's super important to me because it's super authentic, and it's the first time I talk in first person of my own things, So, and what things like it's something that really changed my mind and changed my life completely. So in a way, it's I think that this is personally is the most important album we ever done, and probably is the most authentic and most important music I ever released in my whole life.
Yeah. Yeah, and of course you mentioned like this was inspired after through your accident. Would you say like in a way like this album is almost kind of like a concept album in a way?
It's a concept album, absolutely. We just put it in a poetic way because I didn't want to make the chronicle of what happened. But some songs are almost a chronicle, like it's the concept itself is this is my story. So yes, it is a concept album, and is a concept of like the message of the album is that we can make it, So I really wanted to do an album about this because nowadays I see a lot of people struggling for whatever, and the accident is just a pretext. It's just an example, Everybody has some life-changing experience in its own life, and sometimes we have to face it, and it takes a lot of time to have our lives back. And I just wanted to put some words of encouragement there, because what happened to me was, as I said, a life-changing experience. And this path, I could share this path with my friends, with my family, and now I can share it with all these people listening to our music and supporting us. And this was essential for my recovery. So what I wanted to do is giving something back to them and put some, as I said, words of encouragement and a little bit of, motivation in there, so they can get inspired by this. So that's why it's also super important to me.
Yeah. And musically, did you want to continue in the same vein as Veleno, or did you want to try something new or different that Fleshgod Apocalypse hasn't done before?
The album is the mix of all Fleshgod music. You can find oracles influences in songs like I don't know, At War With My Soul. You can find labyrinth influences in Per Aspera d'Astra, or in I Can Never Die. You can find agony influences in songs like Blood Clock, or like Veleno or King influences in Matricide or Till Death Do Us Part. Like it's like picking the best from every album and making an album with all the best we had in each single album. So I'm pretty sure that overall these are gonna match the taste of many of our fans, because it goes throughout the whole career of the band, and we kind of found the way to balance all of this for once. So I'm super proud of it.
Yeah. And then, of course, you had mentioned earlier that Paulo had left the band earlier this year. So how does that sort of like affect sort of like the dynamic within Fleshgod Apocalypse?
Well, he needed to take a break from music business, and I totally understand. And this allowed us to, have more room for Veronica. So that's the way, things in a way changed. So Veronica is basically handling all the clean vocals and not just the soprano parts. So that's the main difference with the previous albums, basically. So she did a great job, and Paolo listened to the album and is super proud of she did. So, we're all super happy that this in a way happened, because she deserved it.
Yeah. And I know you're also now playing bass live, and I know you also
Yeah.
played like other instruments, like you play drums and you also play guitar and you also do vocals. Do you find like with playing like with other instruments you're able to express like different sides of you creatively?
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely. It's but in the end, my main thing was, remain the songwriter, because songwriting is my big passion, and especially for Fleshgod. So, in a way, the thing it helped me the most is just uh, having to deal with different instruments every time, gave me informations on how to write better that kind of instrument. So now I went through most of it, I feel, more competent in a way, and more skilled. So it's definitely helped me to develop and grow as a musician, but also as a songwriter. So yeah, you can see different sides of me and in it, but also in the overall picture, it definitely was necessary in the end. So yeah.
Anyway, got two more questions for you. In terms of like playing live, how different of a mind frame is it to like playing live as to opposed to like on CD? Is there like any differences or similarities between the two?
It's just more energetic. It's very tough to capture the energy sometimes in the album, because it's a super long process, and there are a lot of ups and downs while you record an album. It's not just that moment, and life experience is in that moment, living in that moment. So I rather playing it live than recorded. And even though recording it is essential, of course, but playing it live is super important. And there is an aspect that it's even more important, since we are, bringing this show. I love the idea, as I said at the very beginning of the interview. I love the idea of entertain people in the whole in a whole. So not just playing the music for them, but also make a theatrical show, and that can be done only on the live, in live shows. And so music is important, but music can be in a way boosted and underlined by a full theatrical show, a full theatrical experience.
Yeah, and I know you also play with like a variety of different bands because the first time I saw you played with Epica, which is more kind of symphonic metal. Then you did that tour with Whitechapel and Black Dahlia Murder, which is like death metal,
Yeah.
deathcore. Then of course you did the Hypocrisy tour in 2019, and then you played with like on the 70,000 Tons of Metal, which is just very like all different types of like metal. So do you ever notice like a different different like crowds depending on like the tours that you play with?
I think it's the best thing of Fleshgod, that we can match with many other bands and with many other genre. In a way, it's what we do in the album, like you find songs like Mona Lisa or acoustic songs, and then you find songs in our catalog like Mafia or like Agony. So I think the best thing, and one of the things I'm more proud of, is that we never put boundaries on our music. So this is in a way reflecting in what happens on live shows. So wherever we go, we have material that can, in a way, keep it up with the other bands' music, and that allows us to go on tour with many